Okay, we're working on the activities of cells. This is a continuation of our study of cells in Chapter 3. In uh, this little lecture, we're going to talk about cell membranes, their structure and their function, and their importance, particularly in transport. Remember that every part of your body and really all the living parts are cells. And all the important, really, things that happen within your body are done by cells and occur within cells. Cells are the smallest thing that's in your body. And last time we talked about all cells having a plasma membrane. This is a phospholipid bilayer with membrane proteins attached and embedded in it. The phospholipid molecules have a structure such that they arrange themselves in this bilayer, and this forms a nice barrier to the movement of most molecules. And then the membrane proteins carry out some important functions in addition to this. They act as receptors to get signals from outside the cell. They serve as transport molecules to control what goes in and out of cells. They also allow cells to identify each other, to attach to each other, and for chemical reactions to occur at cell membranes. The transport process are what we're going to focus on. And this red embedded protein that you see in the phospholipid bilayer, most molecules have to move through a protein channel or pore. Only some can pass directly through the cell membrane. Lipid soluble molecules can enter via diffusion. They have the right chemistry to be small enough to pass through, and they're attracted to the molecules so that they can enter there. Those are going to enter the cells by diffusion. And diffusion is simply the random movement of molecules in a solution. And so you can see this when you take a sugar cube or a drop of dye and place it in water, and it gradually spreads out. This kind of random separation of molecules is enough to move molecules from high concentration to low concentration. And that's very important for like the transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide. A special case of diffusion is osmosis. Osmosis is the movement of water across a semi-permeable membrane. In the case of water, water requires a pore, but all cells have these pores. And so water tends to move from areas where it's very concentrated. Pure water, like distilled water, is a hypotonic solution, and it'll enter cells which have lots of salts and dissolve things in. And so water can cross membranes by going through these pores. So if you put a cell in distilled water, the cell will swell till it might burst. If you put a cell in very salty water or a hypertonic solution, it will shrink as water leaves the cell to enter the salty solution. So we make sure that we put cells in isotonic solutions. And this is a very big application of this is in dehydration. Cells don't function well if they don't have enough water. So athletes drink a solution like Gatorade because it has the right concentration of water for cells. And so it allows the cells to get the right balance of water. Likewise, if we lose water through dehydration, maybe because of diarrhea or exposure into an environment that's too hot and dry, we can become dehydrated. And so this child here is dehydrated. You can see where her skin was pinched, and so she's lacking enough water for her body to function well. Okay, so osmosis and dehydration are passive processes. Cells also use active processes. This means that it requires energy, ATP. And so active transport is often referred to as pumping of solutes or pumping of something because it requires energy. And so in this case, we pump using ATP, and we can pump sodium out of the cells and potassium in. This is needed for our muscle cells and our nerve cells. Another type of active transport is that cells can form vesicles. And so they wrap around either a particle or another cell or some molecules so that they can take a large number of those molecules in at any one time. This too requires a lot of ATP, and so it allows cells to actively engulf things, and so they can take in large amounts of things at one time. Okay, so in summary, cell membranes consist of a phospholipid bilayer and proteins embedded or attached to the membrane. The phospholipid molecules form a barrier to the movement of most molecules. Membrane proteins perform many functions: attachment, signaling, enzyme catalysis, and transport. Water crosses cell membranes by osmosis. Oxygen and other small nonpolar molecules cross the membrane by diffusion. Cells use protein pumps or active transport to move large or charged substances across cell membranes. Okay? So these control what go into and out of the cell, and this is one of the main activities of cells.